Question number 9, Dr. Russell Norman.
Speaker, Talofa Lava, my question is to the Prime Minister and asks, does he stand by all his statements?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, firstly let me acknowledge this will be the last question that member will ask me as co-leader of the Greens. I look forward to the questions from James Shaw next week.
Order.
And the
Order.
answer is yes.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Does he stand by his statement with regard to climate change, that New Zealand is a country that's doing its fair share to tackle climate change, given that New Zealand's net greenhouse gas emissions have increased by 13% since he's been Prime Minister?
Speaker, yes,
Right
I do
Honourable
stand,
Prime Minister.
by that statement, and I think the member is being, as I said before, selective with the truth. If you look at New Zealand's total emissions now, they're about 4% lower than they were at the peak of 2005, and New Zealand's net emissions are about the same level they were in 2007.
Point of order.
Point of order, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek leave to table parliamentary library research showing a 13% increase in net greenhouse gas emissions.
Leave us sought to table that particular information. Is there any objection? There is none. It can be tabled. Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Is the Prime Minister saying that the government's own greenhouse gas inventory, just released a month ago, which shows a 13% increase in net greenhouse gas emissions 2008 to 2013, that this inventory is incorrect when it shows that emissions have increased, net emissions, by 13%?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No, but I am saying that the member, I think, is being selective because of the time frame that's being used. As I said, net emissions are about the same as they were in 2007.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
How much have net greenhouse gas emissions increased since he's been Prime Minister from 2008?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I don't have that information with me.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Why does he not know how much New Zealand's net greenhouse gas emissions have increased since he's been Prime Minister, given that it is probably one of the most important things that will determine the kind of planet our children inherit?
Right, order.
Speaker,
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Put down a general question. If he wants a specific question about climate change, he should direct it at the Minister.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Does the Prime Minister not think that climate change is one of the most important issues that a Prime Minister should be aware of, given that it will have a phenomenal impact on his children, my children and their children if we do not reduce our emissions?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, yes, I think it's an important issue, and that's one of the reasons why the government has an ETS, and it's why the government has pursued quite a number of policies. And I think if we look at ourselves on a relative basis, I've always said I didn't think we should be a leader, but more of a fast follower in this area, and I think we are.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Is it a fast follower to increase New Zealand's net greenhouse gas emissions by 13% in the years since he's been Prime Minister, according to the government's own greenhouse gas inventory? And Prime Minister, do not listen to Nick Smith. He has no idea.
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, I think the member's being selective with the data. New Zealand's total emissions are now 4% lower than they were in the peak of 2005, and net emissions are about the same level as they were in 2007.
Supplementary.
Supplementary question, Dr. Russell Norman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If the vast majority of those who submit on the government's climate change target to take to the Paris conference, if the vast majority call for a target of 40% under 1990 levels, will he listen to them?
Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'll of course listen to them, but it doesn't mean I'll agree with them.
Question number 10. The Honourable